The other piece, you do have industries that are available. If I remember correctly, I think there's a short line that switches the Toyota plant. You've got Blytheville, Arkansas, which has a lot of steel facilities up there. That's another avenue that I think exists for short line in terms of contract switching. It's not just the industry door spots. It's also going into, and I'm just grabbing a customer I'm familiar with. I can't tell you off the top of my head what their footprint's like. But hey, Nucor Yamato, we want to be your industry switcher. We'll take all the cars from Class 1 and we will spot them all in your massive steel facility. And take those kind of runs at contracts, I think, is the way that the short lines need to start looking as well, is look at it at the handoff points for where these big customers are to go that route. I think the Class 1s will have a lot more interest in that. I was for part of it, so I don't mind sharing this, that, when it came to switching Toyota, I didn't know that they ended up giving it to a short line until just recently, but I know that was always a conversation of, do we really want to switch this Toyota plant? Or what's the ideal scenario? Well, the ideal scenario is they handle it themselves or find somebody else to do it. We just deliver the vehicle cars in Tupelo. So I think that's going to be an opportunity for the short lines to grow, other than just looking at some of these small industrial parks throughout the area that just the Class 1s, if they can get rid of them, they will.
You're saying Class 1s would consider getting rid of some of these pieces of the line in the industrials. I looked at, for instance, like the state comptroller lists all these lines by county in Tennessee, and for instance, you can see that like X, Y, and Z Class 1 will have 10 different 1 mile segments that it owns, right? And so it sounds like the short line operators could go in and say, hey, let me operate that. I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to do it cheaper. I'll deal with X, Y, and Z for you. And then you'll still get all the end car allotment or what have you. Is that right?
Exactly.
So, that's helpful. I'm going to try to move along a little bit here. So if these Class 1 operators are willing to divest in the area, so how competitive a process would that be? And that's like a 5 to 10 second answer at best.
Sure. I think it's like anything. It's just going to be taking the bids. It really depends on how much business is there now and what they see in the future and what the bid's going to be. I think it'll be like any RFP that's out there. My suspicion is that once a couple of these go down, more will get wind of it. But right now, there's only really a few players that have been really aggressive in trying to bring on some operations there.
And you mean
and that goes back to our. Go ahead.
That are short line operators that are looking to buy.
Yes. And that goes back to our conversation because of the capital that's available or the capital to be required for it.
Okay. So, and thinking about that, like if it goes to market, when whatever, someone thinks of divesting, who do you think the likely buyers would be in these markets? Again, not seeking confidential information whatsoever.
Sure.
But like this would just be your opinion on who might come to the table.
I think, you've got the big players, Omnitrax, G&W, Corman, Patriot Rail are probably your biggest four, if I remember right, from the short lines. That's not to say, though, that some of these industrial groups may find a bit, or local even principalities may find a couple local venture capitalists to form their own line to take those on. Yeah. I've seen that happen with some business affiliations, just throwing a name, whatever. The Memphis Grizzlies venture capitalist group may decide, well, we don't want to let these guys come in. We'll just form our own group, and there's enough former railroaders that live here. We'll just make our own company and do it that way. So those can always come out of nowhere. I have caught more and more. There's a lot more venture capitalists looking at the rail avenues for that reason. That's part of how Hunter got his funding. And granted, he'd been working with that group for a long time, but that's really where they got intrigued by it, as well as Buffett. But of those are probably the four biggest one, unless you've got somebody that would come out of left field, like not Prairie Lions, but anyway, there's a couple names that escape me right now, but those are your biggest four. But there can always be some that maybe have two or three different railroads that look and go, hey, I think this would make sense. The other thing
Yep.
you have to look at is